Tanks, our resident beefy boys, our guardian protectors, our sexy saviors. This role is usually home to a lot of favorites across many team games, from older classics like Barrack and Roadhog to newcomers like Doctor Strange and Thor. Tanks are the quintessential foundation of a team and are responsible for doing a lot, from holding down objectives and taking space to protecting the backline. At least I would hope for them to do so. Please turn the f around every once in a while. It's no question as to how important tanks are in team games. These characters usually provide protection and survivability to help enable the rest of their teams and lead them to victory. But how exactly does this translate into a game like ZZZ? Well, that's the neat part, it doesn't. I actually think that the defense class in Zenless is by far the worst class of characters in this game. Hoyoverse fails to understand what the purpose of tanks are in most of their games, but Zenless definitely has it the worst. But before we get into things, be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing at the end. Without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, formalities aside, I just want to let it be known that I fucking hate Caesar from both a visual and gameplay design standpoint. I'm gonna eventually talk about all of the defense agents in CCZ and how Hoyo fails to actually make tanks important in this game. Also, I'm not here to be convinced or have my opinions changed. This role absolutely sucks and people aren't talking about it enough in my opinion. And with Pan on the horizon, I think people need to understand how bad Caesar actually is and that she might literally be the first S rank to be power crept by an A rank unit. This is gonna be a new series of videos where I talk about ZZZ characters and how they're either peak cinema or the worst thing imaginable. I aim to talk about most of the cast, so do stick around if you want to see me complain about your favorite. Now, moving back to Caesar. Visually, I dislike two things about her. One, her rat tail ponytail. Hoyoverse is allergic to giving women short hair and absolutely pisses me off. Pisses me off? Holy essay. Caesar would have definitely benefited from chopping off this tiny paintbrush and virtually nothing would be lost from the design. The second thing I dislike about her is her extremely thin physique. She's literally a leader in a group of bikers and the overlord of the Outer Ring. Literal Mad Max type beat, but you mean to tell me that she looks like this? Are you kidding me? This is almost as bad as when they hyped up Fei Xiao to be some sort of like workout junkie when she has arms that thins like this. You know what this reminds me of? You guys know that one image of the fantasy world archetypes and it's depicting the men as specific beastly designs like orcs, demons, goblins, and then the women are just the same PNG of a woman but different colors? That's pretty much what Caesar is. And I think it'd be safe to say that Caesar, Lighter, and Big Daddy could all benefit from what I like to call the Guilty Gear Strive treatment, i.e. putting a bit of extra meat on their bones and overall making their designs more well-rounded and realistic. Though I guess Big Daddy's issues already been solved through external means. Going on to Caesar's gameplay, I'm in full belief that Caesar provides almost next to nothing in terms of endgame content compared to literally any other support in the game. And yes, I'm going to be grouping defense agents with supports because that is essentially what the class is, just with tank-like properties. And if you, as a free-to-play player or light spender, decide to get this character on rerun when Astra is available, then I have no choice but to believe that you enjoy throwing your money away for the love of the game. But Rune, Pride would put Caesar in a very high tier. Surely there was no reason for you to think that she sucks this much. I'm gonna hold your balls when I say this. This character is literally the definition of high investment, low reward when it comes to how they design her kit and mindscapes. Not to mention she's literally outclassed by the xenophobic Italian chai tea from the same faction as her. I am not kidding. It is literally preferred for you to run Lucy on Evelyn's team compared to Caesar simply because Lucy is a way better support than whatever Caesar's trying to be. But before I derail anymore, let's go over her kit and explain my thought process as to why I think this agent sucks. Starting off with the most notable thing about this character, her shield. This is by far her biggest niche and the one sole reason many people will pull for this character from a gameplay perspective. This shield does a lot of things, but the main characteristic about it that many people like is the anti-interrupt it gives. To put it in simpler terms, imagine if this shield was like the Intrepid Heart skill from Monster Hunter Rise. Oh, don't look at me like that. I know that's not exactly simpler terms, but just stay with me now. I promise I'm going somewhere with this. Intrepid Heart is basically a skill that allows you to negate one instance of either knockback, damage, or sometimes both. If you attack the monster enough to fill up this gauge at the top left, you'll be able to tank one deadly hit or completely ignore a move that knocks you back, acting as a better version of the earplug skill to an extent. This is essentially what the effect from pressing EX skill with Caesar will give you, earning you a gauge similar to Intrepid Heart. But rather than it being a one-time thing, it instead has a numerical value that is determined determined based off of Caesar's defense percent. This also gives you the highest level of anti-interrupt in the game, and will protect the agent from any damage so long as that gauge is up. Look, I know that wasn't exactly simpler terms, but you'll survive. Read it yourself if you're still confused. Apart from that shield giving you pseudo invincibility, it also buffs you. And if this attack and its follow-up attack lands, it does an insane amount of days, by tank standard, to the target if countered properly. So Caesar's niche is actually divided into two things: her anti-interrupt shield and her insane days buildup. But Rune, she gives you 1k attack. She also increases the damage enemies take from all squad members. Allow me to introduce you to a lesbian, a gold digger, and a blind sniper. You want attack buffs? Here's 200 more attack than what Caesar gives. You want more susceptibility to damage? Here's 40% defense down on the first A-rank support you get in the game. You want more impact? Here's a character that gives herself upwards of 75% more days just by reaching a crit rate threshold. Seriously, I was shocked to find out that trigger was just as universal as Astra. It's insane. I thought this character sucked. The only way to make this character viable is to run her with these units, with the obvious problem being that you're losing out on a well-needed stunner for your DPS, all for an extra 1k attack and what's essentially an invincibility star in a game with 3 defensive options already. Look, I'm not trying to say that Caesar has been power crept or that she's bad. For a new account or someone who just wants to play the game casually, she's a great agent. You don't have to necessarily think as much when you use this character. But if you're someone who's played since day 1 or for longer than 3 months and only really care about clearing endgame content nowadays, then you shouldn't even give this character a second thought. You do not need this character to clear Deadly Assault, and if you are someone who has literally any mindscape for Miyabi, then I promise you that this unit is not going to help her push through content further. I just think that Caesar has the lowest value in terms of what you need on an account, both kit-wise and for overall endgame viability as well. First of all, this character's kit contradicts itself so much. If you don't know already, defense agents have a special property where they use only 1 assist point to parry heavy attacks. Normally, agents have to use 2 to parry a heavy attack, but defense agents ignore this rule. This is their one class-specific niche that differentiates them from the rest. It's also incredibly helpful on bosses that do a lot of heavy attacks, and Deadly Assault nodes that give you more points the more you parry. Naturally, Caesar only uses 1 assist point to defensive assist, but the part that confuses me is that she can choose to hold down this attack button to consume an assist point to do this spinning move. This move groups enemies and is very bad at doing so, might I add. But the problem I have here is that it uses an assist point rather than a separate character specific meter. The defense class niche doesn't matter if you're still going to be negative on assist points anyway. It's like how Pulchra has to use 2 assist points to enter gate state from her evasive assist. You may as well have parried a heavy attack with how many assist points you're burning. Yes, you can make the argument that you don't have to use this move on Caesar, but by that same logic, you don't have to do the follow-up on Pulchra either. You'll only be missing out on a full meter of gate and the free quick assist as well. And with Caesar, if she has her passive up, you'll be missing out on a debuff that makes all the enemies that get hit by it take increased damage for 30 seconds. But I guess it's not that important since the character already gives you 1k attack, right? That's the best thing about this character, you know? The 1k attack, yeah? Jokes aside, it's not like you're never going to be using this move at all. And if you don't, you're missing out on a 30-second debuff that's actually pretty good and arguably the only competitive thing about this character outside of the shield. So it's pretty safe to assume that in normal gameplay, you're going to be using this move at least once per rotation. Editor's note here, she also gets this debuff from doing 3 other moves that are a lot more common than this, which absolutely sucks for my argument here. But I'd still like to say that it's not completely unlikely that you'll never do this move at all. Delete your comment and put away the pitchforks. And if we're talking about Caesar in the context of Shiyu defense, she needs to use this move to help group and clear enemies. You don't even need to do this on other teams because they usually have better methods of clearing lessers without dipping into expensive resources like this. So if anything, Caesar's actually a detriment to a team because you'd be going into bosses with less resources. And if your response to that is, oh, well, just run her with with a support, then that transitions into my next point on why this character sucks. This character doesn't exist to benefit the other two squad members, she exists to take all of the buffs for herself. She's incredibly selfish, that's why her passive is so easy to get online. She wants to be a main stunner character, yet has the worst kit imaginable to do so. And if you're putting her on any team, you have to sacrifice either a stunner or a support anyway just to make her work, which is also very taxing for the DPS agent involved. And the buffs or days that she brings to the table does not make up for the character you're replacing. You're obviously not going to get rid of Astra, but Evelyn doesn't give a fuck about the measly 1k attack. She benefits better from literally anything Lighter does. Hell, even Coleta is a better slot than Caesar. The same thing goes for any other attack agent in the game. I wouldn't want to put Caesar on my Haru team because her buffs don't help my Haru in any way that he needs it. And in most scenarios, I will always run my Shock Haru team or Nicole instead. Outside of Billy or Neko teams, I will always use either my Astra, Rina, or Nicole. Nicole has arguably the best grouping move in the game, and it's not tied to an important system mechanic as a resource. And the crazy thing about Caesar is that the only way to fix this assist point issue is to get her 5 times. I'm not joking. Her M4 gives her the ability to replenish 3 assist points after any chain attack or ultimate. I really shouldn't need to tell you how unreasonable this is. And this is even crazier when you go back to my point about Caesar being selfish. If you pair up an M4 Caesar with an Astra, you almost never run out of assist points. So this character wants nothing more than to steal your already broken stunner's slot just so that she can waste time on field eating up your assist points with a 1k attack shield as the ruse that's blinding people from realizing how bad she really is. And the thing that really sucks the most about Caesar is that she only exists in one game mode. In Dislight, yes, I'm going to keep using this game as an example, and if you don't like it, then you can gargle my fat panda nuts in your mouth. Characters there have a performance tab that you can click on, and within that performance tab, you can see the general rating of what type of content they're good at clearing. B standing for pretty bad, and triple S usually being absolute meta. Now, if I were to place Caesar into 3 modes, I would do Deadly Assault with an A, and Shield Defense with a B, but that leaves one last game mode that I haven't put her in, and I'd argue that it's her best mode yet, Simulated Battle Trial, or the Tower as many love to dub it. As for the ranking I'd give her, it'd be a triple S. However, this is the Dislight equivalent of ranking an AoE DPS like Zora as triple S for Sonic Rift. This mode came out the patch that Caesar was released, being a boss rush mode of sorts with no breaks in between unless you complete levels. The main thing about this mode is that any damage you took would be carried over to the next floor, and since there were very little forms of recovering HP until Astra, this was where Caesar shined. You could sometimes go tens of floors without taking a single point of damage, so long as you kept Caesar's shield up and reapplied it whenever it went down. Now I will admit, I used Caesar to get to floor 100 of the second tower that was added into the game a couple of updates later, but I still have yet to reach floor 100 on the first one, and that's simply because you don't get any significant rewards for getting up there in the first place. I have no incentive to play this mode for its title that you get at the end, some random lore exposition, and the satisfaction of completing it, because let's be honest, who gives a fuck? Now, if this was part of the constantly rotating modes for endgame every week, I wouldn't necessarily have a problem, but it isn't. This game mode has finite rewards that don't refresh. There's no reason to come back to this mode after you collected everything. Sure, you can try and see how high up you can climb, but why would you? The HP increases, sure, but your character's stats don't, and by the time you get to around floor 60, floor 70, you've fought about every boss that the game has to offer pre 1.6. So the content gets recycled and you're just fighting against the same 20 bosses over and over. Yeah, 20 is a lot, but it still gets a little repetitive, yeah? I'm not saying they need to change this mode at all. It's perfectly fine the way it is, but I have to stress once more, again, the rewards are finite and they're not being constantly updated every week. So once you do everything, there's no real reason to come back here. This ultimately makes Caesar's best mode utterly obsolete the moment you complete everything, thus making the character pretty much useless outside of every other mode. Now, if they made the disputed shield defense node, the one where you only have to worry about your characters dying, a weekly reset, only then will Caesar finally have some actual use, because in that node, not only is it an endurance test, but it's not gated by time at all, which is perfect for Caesar's selfish brawling playstyle. But until then, this character is just collecting dust on my account until I get bored and want to use Billy in Lost Void. I'll touch on her weapon lastly, but it's an impact weapon with a very weird requirement to get its effect. I don't know how much you guys are perfect dodging, but you pretty much always have to do some form of a heavy attack to interrupt. Not that the game shows you W engine effects either, either, but I can always make another video moaning and complaining about the UI if you guys want me to. Jeez, that was fucking cringe. But yeah, this character sucks, and if you get her on rerun instead of Tufufu, Astra, or Yishuan, then you don't deserve to clear endgame. I'ma keep it a $150. Argue with your mama. And that's the end of this video. I was originally going to put all the tanks into one video, but Caesar alone took 3 days worth of script writing to put together, and I don't want to have you guys waiting that long just for another video from me. But other than that, let me know how you feel about Caesar. Yell at me if you think I'm wrong, or praise me for saying what the masters are scared to. I don't know. I think I have a praise kink or something. But be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you want to see more gacha content like this. And a special shout out to my channel members, FJ, Middle Class Bear, and Rumi for supporting me. Members get shouted out at the end of my videos and access to them a day early. So if you want to help this panda continue to make more content like this, consider becoming a member today. That's all from me right now. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.